According to the Innocence Project, we have nearly 120,000 people behind bars in the United States for crimes that they did not commit. Now, this is an estimate that the Innocence Project has put out there, but it isn't so far-fetched when you think about the way our justice system works. Now, there are two issues with our justice system right now as it stands. First of all, prosecutors and cops and authorities can lie to people while they are interrogating them or investigating them in order to get confessions. And oftentimes it will lead to a confession to a crime that the person actually didn't commit at all. In fact, a 1969 Supreme Court ruling made it legal for cops to lie to suspects in pursuit of confessions. So for instance, let's say you have two suspects, right? You'll separate them, and one of the cops will basically tell one of the individuals that's being investigated, hey, your friend said that you committed the crime. Is it true? And then it'll basically snowball into the person either confessing to something they didn't do or alleging that their friend did something that they didn't do. The second problem is that there's a tremendous amount of pressure to take plea deals. In fact, if you really think about the number of federal cases, the vast majority of them end in plea deals. Now, first of all, let's talk about the number of exonerations, okay? Of the 321 DNA exonerations that have occurred in the United States, 30 have involved people who originally pled guilty to crimes they didn't commit. So this isn't like a isolated case here and there. This happens often. And also, according to the Innocence Project, estimates between 2.3% and 5% of all U.S. prisoners are innocent. The American prison population numbers about 2.4 million. Using those numbers, as many as 120,000 innocent people could currently be in prison.
So, first of all, on the lying to the accused, I don't mind that. So it's a curious thing to say, right? But interrogation is a really hard thing to do. So when somebody comes in, if you say to them, hey, look, we got no evidence on you, but we saw you running, we thought it's probably you. You want to tell us whether it was you? They're going to say, oh, well then no, it wasn't me.
Yeah,
right?
You don't have to come in and say, we have no evidence, right? You don't have to be that honest.
Right. No, and I think there's a very important line between lying and coercion. Right? Mm-hmm. Coercion is when you put undue pressure on somebody. Like, for example, they ask for a lawyer and you continue to interrogate him anyway. You interrogate him for 12 hours straight, right? You don't let him eat or drink or go to the bathroom. Those kind of things lead to false confessions. Right. Because the guy's like, I need a sandwich, I'm dying over here, or I'm going to crap my pants, or I'm so scared that you're going to beat me. I'll tell you what you want to hear even though it isn't true. Right. That doesn't help anybody because false confessions don't help, right? Not only do they not help because you've taken an innocent guy's freedom away, but you didn't catch the guy who did it, right? So now, on the other hand, saying, oh, your buddy already gave up the crime, so just go ahead and tell us what actually happened, I got no problem with that. Because at that point, if they say, oh, well, okay, then I did it with an axe and I did it in the billiard room with Professor Green, or Colonel Mustard, well then you can see if that's true or untrue and figure that out. Mm-hmm. If you take away lying from cops, it is going to be incredibly hard to get confessions.
It's true, but when you look at the case, like for instance, the Central Park Five, right? Mm-hmm. The way that the investigators lied to the suspects led to them confessing to the crime that they did not commit. They did not rape that woman. They were not guilty of that crime. These were teenagers that had absolutely no involvement whatsoever. But the investigators gave them misleading information, and there was obviously an element of coercion involved as well, and it led to them confessing, and they served over 7 years behind bars as a result of that.
No, in that case, which we've covered in the past, there was tremendous coercion. Yeah. Right? So, and I understand sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, but look, that's why we have professionals who are supposed to be able to discern when they've crossed the line, right? And that's why we have the rights to defendants that they have. They can ask for a lawyer, et cetera, right? And so it's not to minimize the problem. The problem is enormous. And sometimes prosecutors, you'll say, okay, DNA evidence exonerates the person you put on death row. Yeah. And they'll say, no, I think he should still be executed.
Yeah.
But it's not his DNA. He obviously didn't do it.
It's because prosecutors don't want to admit that they were wrong, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the second part of this, suspects feeling pressure to take plea deals, right? Mm-hmm. Now here's an amazing stat that I didn't know. If every one of those cases went to trial, the justice system would quickly collapse under the load. Thus, more than 96% of all cases end in a plea bargain. Yep. So many people are investigated for so many crimes that our justice system would collapse that prosecutors are like, take the plea deal, take the plea deal, take the plea deal. And they're, in a lot of cases, they're coerced into taking the plea deal because they know that if they don't, oftentimes they might get convicted of a crime they didn't commit, and they might get something like life behind bars for meth possession.
Yep.
Cases like that happen all the time. The Supreme Court's suggestion that a plea bargain is a fair and voluntary contractual arrangement between two relatively equal parties is a total myth. It is much more like a contract of adhesion in which one party can effectively force its will on the other party. That's according to a federal judge.
So I think this cuts both ways too. So let me explain. First of all, a lot of times you'll do cases where somebody's got convicted of simple marijuana possession. Oftentimes it won't just be possession, they were actually selling. But they took a plea deal and they took a lesser charge, which was just possession. So sometimes it makes the defendant look better than he actually is, right? But in other cases, as Anna pointed out, you're facing life, son. What are you going to do? You're going to take your 5 years and call it a day.
And the odds are against you, Cenk. The federal conviction rate is an astonishing 97%, and studies have shown that defendants who refuse plea bargains are put behind bars for roughly 9 times as long as those who take deals. So even if you haven't committed the crime, if you know these are the statistics and the odds are against you, you might confess to a crime that you didn't commit.
So, and those are not idle threats. And so there's another element of this which is really important, which leads to people serving way too much time in prison. Since they know 96% of the cases are going to be plea deals, what they do is they crank up the maximum on these prison sentences so that they could bring them down in a plea bargain and still get a heavy sentence. Now, because they do that, if every once in a while you test them and you go to court, because you're in some cases actually innocent, that's why you went to court, right? You're going to lose 97% of the time anyway, and you're going to get the cranked up sentence.
Yeah.
A sentence that should be nowhere near as high as it is. So that's why you have a lot of people in prison because of the plea deals, and then the people who actually went to court are in prison for a long, long time, absurdly, irrationally long time. Sometimes you'll get the rare case where a child predator gets out and you're like, why? Why did he get out? It's so frustrating, right? But the overwhelming majority of the cases are people who are in prison for too long.